Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Thank you once again for tuning in to the GSMC Baseball Podcast here on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Collin Manley, bringing you another great episode in this wonderful, wonderful World Series that we got going on. We have to get you updated on everything. It's looking like Dodgers are on the verge, potentially, of their first championship in quite some time. We're going to talk about that a little bit more, get you updated on everything. Game 4 and Game 5 since the last time I had recorded. I talked about how Game 4 was going to be a big thing, so we got to get you up to date on everything that has happened since then. I also want to take the opportunity to talk about some Game 6 storylines. Game 6 is going to be tonight. As of this recording on October 27th, I'm getting this done ahead of time, so by the time you hear this, you are listening, you will know the outcome of Game 6. We might have a champion. We might have the two greatest words in sports in Game 7. We will see what happens with that. But there's some big things that will be a part of one team winning a title or one team pushing this series along further. I want to take an opportunity and look at what Randy Arozarena has been doing compared to other very clutch Octobers. He is up there. He is having some of the best plate appearances. You know, he's just one of the best Octobers we've ever seen. So we really need to break it down and look at it compared to some other all-time greats. And lastly, I want to take an opportunity to talk about something, an interesting decision that came in the MLB today. Not something that we see happen a great deal, but I'm wondering if this decision will lead to more like it and potentially some changes in how we see franchises run in the future. But we need to start things off with updating you on the World Series, Game 4 and Game 5. Since our last recording, we talked about how Game 4 usually swings these series in a big way. One team, if they're up in that 2-1 going on to Game 5, if they have a 3-1 lead, they win almost 90% of the time, a little over 85%. Obviously, that means the other team not a very high likely chance, but if it gets even back to 2-2, the odds of winning the World Series slightly shifts to the team that wins Game 4. Well, Tampa Bay came out victorious in Game 4, winning 8-7, scoring 2 runs in the bottom of the ninth in what was just an unbelievable play. I remember it happened, my jaw just dropped. Brett Phillips' game-winning single, which brought in 2 runners, one of them being Randy Arozarena, who was just out, easily out. We had 2 runners on, first and second. The first one scored easily because the ball was booted in the outfield on an error that was in center field. On top of that, so that was by Chris Taylor. That was an error in center field. On top of that, then we had a throw. It was a great throw in to the relay man. Relay man then to the catcher. Ball was dropped at home by Will Smith. And that led to Arozarena being able to come in. It was unbelievable in the moment. Like I said, I sent out some text messages, just one word, wow. And the conversation was amazing. I know I shared the video with some people that weren't necessarily watching, and they're like, that they couldn't believe it when it happened. So that game tied the series up 2-2. And also, that game pretty much put the nail in the coffin, I think, with any hope that Kenley Jansen is going to be okay for the Dodgers. I would be very concerned if he is taking the mound in a close game again. Now, LA might do it. They might back their guy, but things are definitely looking a little suspect for him right now. After that game, we go on to game 5. Clayton Kershaw gets to take the mound once again, and Clayton Kershaw is trying to right a lot of wrongs in his past. He went 5 2/3, 2 earned runs allowed, 6 Ks, 2 walks. Those 2 earned runs were the only earned runs as the Dodgers took a 4-2 win. The Dodgers jumped out to an early lead. They were up 3-0 in the second inning. The Rays got 2 in the bottom of the third. It was 3-2. 1 run was tacked on later for the Dodgers. Not much else to be said about this game. The move to pull Kershaw, though, was a scary one, as he had only 85 pitches at the time. I'm assuming that Roberts is doing this as a precaution move, that if they need him out of the bullpen in Game 6, maybe to close things out, or Game 7 starter potentially. But I don't like the move. I mean, win the game you have now. Don't plan for the game in the future, especially when it's 2-2. Dustin May came in, 1 2/3 innings, was good. With Victor Gonzalez. This was a big, big moment for Kershaw. We have had to deal with Kershaw getting bashed because of his postseason performances. Everything is fair. Everything is valid. This guy is a first ballot Hall of Famer of what he has done in the regular season. He's been one of the most dominant pitchers of my lifetime and one of the most dominant pitchers ever on a baseball franchise that is just historic. So he has a lot going for him. Numbers look great. But when he gets to the postseason, he has been very up and down. We have seen him pitching in tight spots, struggle. In must-wins for the Dodgers, he has not looked good. Now, this one's been a little different. He went out, got the win in Game 1 to take the series lead. So that's a, pressure-filled game. He then goes on here in Game 5 and gets a win for the Dodgers there. So 2-0. If the Dodgers win this series, Kershaw will be getting some, buzz probably for a World Series MVP. Now, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because there's other guys as well that'll be in this. Justin Turner, Max Muncy have been batting pretty well. Jock Peterson's been all right. Corey Seager's batting .471 in this series. So there will be conversations about a lot of different people, but Kershaw will get some buzz in this, okay? That will happen. I am just enjoying the fact of seeing him turn things around. Him right some wrongs, having some issues in the past. We know. Kershaw probably deserves a ring. This Dodgers team, I'm not a full Dodgers rooting guy, but you want to see these legends get theirs. And it really looks like Kershaw might be on the way to doing that. And in his performance, Kershaw also passed a pretty big milestone. He moves past Justin Verlander for the all-time lead in strikeouts in the playoffs. 207 career postseason strikeouts in 189 innings. Verlander has 205 strikeouts and 187 2/3 career postseason innings. Would have been interesting to see if Verlander, where this would have all finished if he got to pitch in this postseason, but hey, that's health. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Maybe Verlander will be back in the postseason in the future. We'll see what happens there. But still, you can't take anything away. Kershaw has been in the postseason so often. Congratulations to him to move into first place on this. We'll see how long he gets to actually hold it. Like we said, if Verlander gets to come back. But Kershaw, there's a good chance he's going to be back next year. Chance to add on to this as well. Kershaw was great and quoted. He said, "It just means I've been on great teams that have gotten to go to the postseason a lot, gotten a lot of starts in the postseason." So he's really just giving a lot of praise to being a part of great teams, his teammates, how he wouldn't be able to do this stuff without him, just being the ultimate team guy. So you have to give your hats off to him. Congratulations to Kershaw on passing such a major feat. The other thing in this postseason that needs to be talked about is Randy Arozarena. And I'm going to talk about him later in the podcast as well because I want to compare him to some other great postseason runs. But he now owns the record for most hits in a single postseason after Game 5 as well. His 27th hit in the postseason. 25 years old. This guy is a rookie. He was tied with Pablo Sandoval, who had his 26 hits in the 2014 postseason. And you just can't talk about this enough. It was the first of his hits with a runner in scoring position. The first. He was previously 0 for 6, and that's the one thing that you have to knock on his postseason so far. He's tied for most home runs in a postseason at 8. I would love to see him get 9. This is getting very, very, very close to legend epic status. Okay? Whatever happens with the rest of Rosarena's career, I don't care right now. The fact that he has come in as a rookie with okay numbers in the regular season and done this in the postseason is incredible. And I just sit here and I think, St. Louis Cardinals, you lost out on this guy, it looks like. Don't trade with the Rays. You're not going to win. So, having some high expectations for Game 6. And not to go back too much and just overplay things, but Game 4 might have been one of the best World Series games we've ever seen. The Dodgers got out to a quick lead. Rosarena hits his 8th home run of the postseason. There's a big milestone there. Like we said, Kershaw takes the lead for most career strikeouts in the playoffs. Then we have a Dodgers team that has a lead, followed by Brandon Lau getting a big home run to take a lead back from the Dodgers. The Dodgers respond in the next inning. Then we have another huge home run from the Rays, who, might I mention, the Rays had 3 home runs in 3 consecutive innings, and they weren't even winning the game. Home run in the 5th, 6th, and 7th, one of them being a 3-run home run. And after that 3rd home run, tie game, 6-6. Dodgers take the lead in the top of the 8th. Rays put together an epic finish in the bottom of the 9th. Brett Phillips coming up clutch, who honestly doesn't have much play. He wasn't on the roster for the American League Championship Series. Gets brought up, has the biggest hit of his lifetime. Epic stuff. It's one of the best games we've seen this postseason. Might be one of the best postseason games we've ever seen. Man, this baseball playoff has been unbelievable. Unbelievable. Let's just hope that we get the same thing when it comes to Game 6 tonight. So, we are going to take a quick break, and I want to talk about Game 6 storylines. What are going to be the things that matter? What do we need to be looking at? I have 7 key storylines to be talking about when it comes to Game 6 in the World Series. Sorry, not wild card, in the World Series. So take a quick break. Come right back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
It truly is pretty funny to look at kind of the numbers right now for this World Series. I'm a little disappointed in the sense that some of the viewership, our diehard baseball fans are for sure watching. But for those that are just casual fans that might not be excited about the fact that it's Dodgers, Rays, first off, if you don't love the Dodgers, be there to root against the Dodgers. Watch. Why not? The Rays are the perfect underdog franchise to root for. Get behind this Rays team. They don't have the salary, the money. They build their team through their farm, through their trades, and they get rid of people when they know they're going to be too expensive. Try to get top value out of a lot of guys. And this team is absolutely loaded with talent. Like, it is a great team to be watching against a team that is constructed in LA. Yes, did they spend a lot of money? For sure. Yeah, are they able to trade a lot of capital to take on contracts? Yeah, whatever. But these are two greatly talented teams. And some people are really missing out on a great World Series. It's quite a shame. Quite a shame. But we need to dive into the game that is going to be happening tonight. So by the time you hear this, hopefully a lot of this stuff came true. A lot of these were big parts of why an outcome went one way or the other, whether it be our World Series champion, whether it be Game 7 is happening. Let's talk about the things that are going to matter the most. And the first thing that I have to say that is going to be massive in whether or not the Rays are going to win this game is the Rays need to come out, and they need to come out hot right away. Most of these games, we've seen the team that scores first, they are winning. With the exception of really Game 5, the team that gets on the board quick, early, puts a lot of pressure on the other team. So, Tampa Bay, you want to be the team to do this? You want to make sure that you get out and get ahead? What you need to do is make sure you put some runs on the board. Get out there and support Blake Snell in any way you can. He's got a 3.86 ERA so far in the postseason, or in this World Series, 1.29 whip, and 4 2/3 in his first start. He had 9 strikeouts. 4 walks was a problem. The 1 home run was not great either. But he has the chance to get a lot of people out and keep people off the board. The Rays offense needs to come up, come clutch, and get some runs on the board. Okay? Blake Snell will not be pushed either. Okay? He is not going to be pushed deep into this start. But it would be nice if he can get further than just into the 5th inning. Okay? Don't put too much pressure on your bullpen early. Get one of these starters to have a deep, long run. That's something I want to be looking at. So that's what's going to matter. Getting a good start in this game. Lot of runs for the Rays right away. And then we need to be talking about Blake Snell going deeper in this game. So that's what I have for a good start into this game. The second thing that's going to matter a lot is going to be the Dodgers bullpen. Okay? We've seen 2 things happening. Kershaw getting starts, Buehler getting starts, and then after that, they're kind of mixing things in. Julio Urias, he got 1. But it's kind of been bullpen games other than that. And it's worked. They're up 3-2. So they're looking to try and clinch. But the Dodgers bullpen hasn't necessarily been lights out when it comes to the Rays. They have a 5.57 ERA for the World Series. Gonna be fully rested coming into this game. And they have most of their relievers available. So Game 6, go all in and maybe try to win, I would say. Now, you can't play for Game 7. I just don't think you can do that. Unless this is absolutely no chance you're coming back. Don't be surprised if we see a lot of bullpen arms used. Just don't be surprised about that. Tony Gonsolin is getting the start for the Dodgers, and he only went 1 1/3 innings last time, 6.75 ERA. He's got a loss in the World Series. If we're not getting something great out of him, go to that bullpen. Go to that bullpen, try to keep this game, try to clinch, try to take it all. That's what's going to be important. So Dodgers bullpen is going to be huge for them tonight. Another thing that we could say, talking about the Tampa Bay Rays, outside of Randy Arozarena, who is going to be their source of offense? Okay? MLB.com put this really good. For all the talk of the Rays offense being Randy and all those guys who aren't Randy, it's worth noting that Arozarena doesn't actually have the highest OPS of the club's regulars in the World Series. That's going to actually be Kevin Kiermaier, but not just him. Manuel Margot, Yandy Diaz, and Michael Brosseau have started to hit the ball as well. Disappointments, though, are in their lineup. Brandon Lau, who was an MVP-type player, we've talked about this. he needs to be picking it up and being great. Now, he has 3 home runs in this series. That has mattered. 3 big home runs, all coming in their wins. So that power has been huge. Joey Wendell, Willie Adams, and Austin Meadows, they have been a little struggling as well. The Rays are going to have opportunities to mix and match today. It's going to be most likely some sort of bullpen game for the Dodgers, unless Tony Gonsolin looks great. So, try to play their matchups, which is what they're most likely going to do, use their depth, but somebody has to give some offensive production tonight. That's going along with, we talked about getting out early, getting a good start. So, looking for somebody to step up for the Rays tonight. Who knows? Maybe it'll be another Brandon Lau game. If he has another home run, we're going to have to start assuming they're going to win. So that's for sure, looking at that. The fourth thing that we have, are the Dodgers going to try to win the World Series on their home field? So, 1988, last time the Dodgers won a World Series. The last time the Dodgers won was at home. The only title they ever clinched in Dodger Stadium was in 1963. That was the last time the Dodgers won a World Series at home. So 1988 was away. All of their World Series victories outside of 63 have been on the road. Fall Classic, October, is being played on a neutral field in Texas. But doesn't it feel like the Dodgers are truly the home team in this series? If you've been watching and paying attention to the crowd, it feels like they are the home team. When Clayton Kershaw got pulled in Game 5, there were loud boos in the crowd. It's not Dodger Stadium. Don't get me wrong. And it won't feel the same as winning in Dodger Stadium. But if they win this game tonight, it's going to feel loud. So that's what I mean by I say that. Are they going to win their World Series on home field? It almost feels like it's a home game in the sense of what these baseball players are used to in this shortened non-fan season. It almost feels that way a little bit. It's a fun conversation. Something definitely to be watching tonight. Do the Rays also have another shock in them? The fun thing about this Rays team is you don't really know who you're going to be getting offensive production from every night. Now, Arozarena's been great the entire postseason. That's no shock there. But who was really calling for a Brett Phillips walk-off? I mean, Brandon Lau hasn't been himself. There's been other guys that have been giving some run production when it comes to Tampa Bay in this postseason. I mean, G-Man Choi has his opportunities. Meadows has done some stuff. Manuel Margot has had some play in there. Kevin Kiermaier, the center fielder, who's not much for batting overall, had a big home run. Who's going to be the surprise guy for the Rays to push on? We talked about offensive production. We talked about who in the world is going to be helping out. It just feels like somebody's going to shock us. Somebody's going to surprise us if the Rays are going to go on to win. Okay? And then the last 2 points kind of going together. We're going to follow the quote that's been LeBron James that he's been telling the Dodgers all along. Go finish your breakfast. Finish your breakfast. They're one win away from a World Series championship. They were 1 win away in 2017. It's happened before. Yu Darvish got rocked by the Astros. Is this going to be the time that they can close it out? The Dodgers have been so close. They have been there so many times. Can this team put it all together? With the addition of Mookie Betts, are we going to have those young arms, that bullpen, come together and make this all right? Will this be the time? Will this be the time? What an opportunity in LA right now. The Lakers just won an NBA Finals. The Dodgers could win a World Series here. And the LA Rams, they're kind of good. They just had a big win here at Monday Night Football. Things could be going pretty well for them. So, there's a feel. I got a feel that, the Dodgers, this is their title. But I'm not making any predictions. I called for Game 7 before. I always love to see it. I'm hopeful for a Game 7. And if those Dodgers do win, here's the 7th thing I want to talk about. Who's going to be that MVP? We brought it up a little bit. The discussion for that most valuable player in the World Series could go in a lot of different places. Corey Seager, we said before, hitting .471. Justin Turner has 4 more extra base hits than he does. So he's been hitting the ball over the place, home runs, doubles, and all that. Max Muncy leads the team in RBIs and is reaching base at a .522 clip. Pretty solid. But Clayton Kershaw and his 2 wins in the World Series is kind of what we've been wanting from him, isn't it? Isn't this what we've been wanting? Kershaw to be dominant in the postseason, be the reason that the Dodgers are winning. And if this goes to Game 7, and potentially Walker Buehler has to start Game 7, because Kershaw's most likely going to be a bullpen guy, but still could be used. And he has a great start. We got to talk about Buehler. I love talking about pitchers. I think these guys need to win more World Series MVPs. Just because if they go out and have 2 solid wins and then get used out of the bullpen, like why not? That's a big reason of why you win games. I'm still bitter about a World Series MVP that Tim Lincecum didn't win for the Giants. Like, these pitchers need to be considered in this just as much as a lot of hitters do. Okay. If Tampa Bay wins, though, Rosarena will be on there. Kiermaier will be talked about. There's a lot of ways that this could go. But I'm saying that if the Dodgers win it tonight, I think we got to look hard at Kershaw and consider it. So that's what's on my mind. So that's 7 fun storylines that have to do with Game 6. Like I said, I'm hoping that these come to fruition tonight. If you want to follow a trend, the team that gets on the board early is going to be the team that's most likely coming out victorious in this game. We'll see if it happens tonight. Be funny enough putting that podcast out there and all of a sudden it goes differently. But hey, I got to try to follow a trend here. So that's what we have for storylines, Game 6. Excited to talk about it. We're going to take another quick break here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. And when we come back, we need to talk about some clutch, great Octobers. And you know what? Where does a Rosarena really compare to some of the best here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast?
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Legend status. We don't get to throw that out there all that often. Let's be honest. And what Randy Rosarena is doing is up there with legend status. What you do in October will be remembered for a long, long, long time, regardless of how the rest of your career pans out. Now, me as a Red Sox fan, I think of like a Pablo Sandoval. He had his obvious disappointment when it came to his massive contract. But I still think of right away that one postseason run that got him a fat contract, in which he, at the time, held the record for most base hits in a postseason. What you can do in October can cement your legacy for a long, 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 long time. And even one of the best Octobers we've ever seen is by a player that, in all reality, had one great October and the rest of his career was pretty meh, not that special. Okay? At least that's the way I look at it right now. But we're going to start things off. We got to talk about Arozarena and what he's done. So 42 major league games before entering this 2020 postseason. That's what he has for the Rays. All right, regular season numbers. But outside of Tampa, how many people really knew his name coming into this postseason? Be honest. How many truly knew his name? I bet not many. I bet not many. But since this thing has started, he has just littered himself all over the record books. When it came to total bases, base hits, tied for home runs, he is doing some unbelievable stuff. In 19 games played in the postseason, he has 27 hits, 18 runs, 9 home runs, 13 RBIs. Okay? He has been outstanding. Outstanding. 370 batting average, 439 on base percentage, slugging 808, OPS 1.247. He is must watch TV right now, every at bat that he takes. Must watch. And that's pretty darn good for a rookie. He's going to be eligible to be a rookie next year. He's going to be in the consideration for Rookie of the Year next year, and he could potentially have an ALCS MVP, and if things go to Game 7, a World Series MVP. Unbelievable way to start your career. But I wanted to talk to him and also remind some people where he kind of stacks up against some other great performances in the postseason. And one of the first ones that came to mind is, do you remember Daniel Murphy just slugging away for the New York Mets? Got himself a big contract from the Washington Nationals afterwards. I mean, in the NLCS against the Cubs, Murphy hit .529 with 4 home runs before being named MVP of that series. He hit .333 with 3 homers in the NLDS against the Dodgers. 7 postseason home runs were half of the number of home runs he hit during the entire regular season in 2015. Murphy during that postseason also had a 1.115 OPS with 11 RBIs. He was phenomenal. You could not get him out for a stretch in that playoffs. I would say Arozarena pretty comparable to what Murphy's doing, especially considering how hot he was getting in that postseason. Another guy that I think of way too often, and this is my guy who had probably the best postseason performance ever, maybe. I mean, it's up there. I can understand the discussion of why he would think so, is David Freese, a St. Louis legend now. Went to high school and community college in St. Louis, too, by the way. Coming up big for the hometown team. And he came up huge in every opportunity for the Cardinals in 2011. He drove in 4 runs in winner-go-home scenarios against the Phillies in the NLDS. NLCS batted .545, 12 for 22 with 3 home runs and 9 RBIs. That took the Cardinals past the Brewers in 6 games and went to the NLCS, earned those NLCS honors. Okay. But that was just the start. World Series versus Texas, things just kept going. Notched hits in each of the first 3 games. Postseason hitting streak was 13 games before he lost it in Game 4. In Game 6, Freese had 2 times where he was the hero. A game-tying triple with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th and a walk-off homer in the 11th. Both of those coming with 2 strikes, and he still wasn't done. Started Game 7, 2-run doubles. The Cardinals rallied back to beat the Rangers in what was a very, very competitive and fun World Series. David Freese was the hero in that postseason. Arozarena is not quite there, considering all the clutch hits, and, a championship would have helped. But he is near that. We also have some other ones, as clutch as they get. Carlos Beltran in 2004, the Astros. They didn't win that World Series. They didn't even get to that World Series. But he was unbelievable. He was a big-time trade piece, got from the Royals to the Astros in a 3-team deal in June of 2004. 23 home runs over the final 90 games to help Houston get to the postseason. And once they got there, Beltran hit .435, 8 home runs, joined Barry Bonds, Bonds had the 8 home runs before that in 2002. But he did it in 17 games to Beltran's 12. Now, Nelson Cruz was the other guy that came along before Rosarena came and passed that up. But in the limited amount of games, Beltran was unstoppable. What were you going to do with him? You couldn't get him out. Beltran's peak in October 2004 came in the NLDS Game 5 versus the Braves on October 11th through NLCS Game 4 versus the Cardinals on October 17th. He hit .611 with 5 of his 8 postseason homers between that stretch. From Game 5 of the NLDS to Game 4 of the NLCS. Was as good as it comes. I mean, unbelievable. 2004 also was a time when we saw another great performance in David Ortiz. The great comeback. The legendary Red Sox run. I don't know how to put this in any other way. It was where the slogan was Big Papi postseason hero was solidified. This was when it happened in October in 2004. Walk-off homer against the Angels in the 10th inning of ALDS Game 3. That sent Boston on to the ALCS against the Yankees. They fell down 3-0. Looked like the Yankees had that wrapped up, but Ortiz was huge. Walk-off homer in the 12th inning of Game 4. Walk-off single in the 14th inning of Game 5. First team to ever come back from a 3-0 deficit. Ortiz was ALCS MVP, and it ended up being the breaking of the curse for the Red Sox. So that was just phenomenal. Those are the best. And one other one that I could throw out there for hitting performances is you could talk about a lot of Barry Bonds stats, but 2002 was incredible. 1 game away from a World Series. This is the year after Bonds hit his 73 home runs. After that, Bonds went yard 3 times over Atlanta in a 5-game series in the NLDS. Another home run and 6 RBIs while getting walked in nearly half of his at-bats in the 5-game NLCS victory over the Cardinals. The Angels knew at that point, hey, we can't let this guy kill us. But Bonds still had 4 home runs and finished the postseason batting .471 with a 1.994 OPS. That's just unbelievable. Unfortunately, Giants didn't go on to win that. Angels won the World Series in 2002, but it wasn't Barry Bonds' fault. He was great. So, Rosarena, he's up there in that elite company. Freese is probably the best one. Ortiz, he's there. Beltran and Murphy didn't win. Bonds didn't win. So that's why those 3 lag behind. And, a lot of Rosarena's legacy is going to fall just where his team finishes. If they don't win the World Series, hey, it's a great October. It's an epic October. We'll remember it. But if they go on to force a Game 7 and win this thing, it's going to become even bigger. And I do want to talk about, too, like, give some notice to some pitchers in October as well. I mean, what we saw from Steven Strasburg was unbelievable last year. He struck out 47 batters in the postseason. That's second most in postseason. He finished 5-0 in that month. First pitcher to win that many games without a loss in a single postseason. He was unbelievable. Big reason why the Nationals were there. Hopefully he comes back healthy and he gets a chance to show why he's so dominant again. Another starting performance, Madison Bumgarner. This guy is made for the postseason as well. Heroic pitching performances. That's where he stands. 7 innings in each of his 6 starts in 2014, allowing no more than 3 runs in any of them, and he had 2 shutouts in there. One of them was the wild card game against the Pirates, another against the Royals in Game 5 of the World Series. 3 nights later, Game 7, he pulled them out on short rest to come out of the bullpen. Shut the door for 5 innings. That was an all-time performance as well. And other starting all-time performances for pitchers, I mean, you can't forget about what Josh Beckett did in 2003 in that Marlins team, going on to knock out the Cubs. he was superb. Randy Johnson, Kurt Schilling, 2001. That was a combination. They combined to go 9-1 in the 2001 playoffs. 1.30 ERA, 103 strikeouts, and 89 2/3 innings. And they pitched 60%, almost 60% of the team's innings in October. You're not going to see that from two starters in a postseason probably ever again, because these starters just don't go that deep. Doesn't happen. And you could also give shout outs to a lot of relievers that have been great in postseason action. Koji Uhira for the Red Sox was great. He had a good 2013 and then an even better postseason. 13 postseason appearance, struck out 16 hitters, no walks. He had .66 ERA, 152 batting average. That was dominant. Andrew Miller was another guy that we've seen recently. I mean, he was, the relief stud for the Cleveland Indians in 2016, but ultimately fell to the Cubs. So unfortunate there. You don't see many relievers win ALCS MVP, and that's what happened against the Blue Jays, and that's very, very, very impressive when it comes to any type of reliever. But if you want to have your legacy in October, or your legacy in baseball all around, you do stuff in October. And hopeful here that Arozarena's run this season isn't quite done. I want that Game 7. I'm hopeful for it. I'm not cheering for the Rays or Dodgers to win either way. Just cheering for good baseball once again. So, man, it's fun. It's a lot of fun to revisit some of the hot stretches these guys have in October. These are some of the best players too in baseball. I mean, when they're healthy and right, David Ortiz, Carlos Beltran, Barry Bonds, Steven Strasburg, Madison Bumgarner, Josh Beck, Kurt Schilling, Randy Johnson, those names. When they're right, the best players really come to put on a show in October. They really do. So let's hope that this is good news for the Rays and Arozarena having a very long, healthy, amazing career for Tampa and whoever else moving forward. So fun to talk about. We're going to take one more quick break, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about an interesting move that was recently made in the MLB. And I'm wondering if it's going to have somewhat of a ripple effect when it comes to how franchises and organizations are run in the future. Coming up here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Postseason baseball. The fun to talk about it. These October legacies. I didn't expect to see something like Arozarena this year, and it makes this 2020 season feel even more special. With everything that's been happening, it makes it more memorable in a good way, and how dominant a player could possibly be. And it takes a lot to get there, a lot of building, a lot of coaching and work to be that dominant. And we actually had a pretty big coaching move that was made. Now, it's not a new manager. We're not talking about that. And I've had a lot of people argue with me in the past that sometimes how much does coaching in the MLB actually play a role? And it's not just the MLB. It's a conversation that's been had in a lot of sports. The NBA, the NFL, just how much is it the talent? How much is it the coaching? And it's something that's very interesting to discuss, especially in the sport of baseball, when a lot of people think, oh, you just go out there and play. You just go out there, hit your spots, you go out there, hit. all that. There's a lot that goes into this, a lot of preparation, a lot that has to do with a team clicking and being their best they can be. Because even at the highest level, there's some little, little pieces of information and scouting that can help you, little moves you can do, little bits of instruction that's going to help change a guy's season, make them maybe a little more fine-tuned, perform better. And that's why I'm looking at a move that was made today on one of our teams that are outside of the playoffs, in the Texas Rangers. Now, the Texas Rangers are a team that had a lot of frustration with me this year in the sense of their pitching. Lance Lynn was outstanding. The Rangers then, at the trade deadline, had a top-end starter in Lance Lynn that they could have moved. They decided not to. And outside of Lance Lynn, and even Mike Minor in recent years, the Rangers pitchers combined for a 5.07 ERA the past 2 seasons. That ranks 26th in the majors, and that's even with Lance Lynn and Mike Minor in these last 2 seasons. So their pitching has been a problem. So the Rangers went out and they decided to do something that's very unique. Texas is planning to utilize Doug Mathis and Brendan Segura as co-pitching coaches in 2021. Mathis directing from the dugout, Segura working out of the bullpen. We're seeing 2 guys get used and utilized here. They're going to go on to replace Julio Rangel. Contract wasn't going to be renewed after the last 2 seasons on the job. Obviously, pitching was not going well outside of 2 really good players for them. So they decided to make a move. This announcement came on Monday saying that Mathis and Segura will split the duties and responsibilities while trying to mold the young pitching staff. So Mathis, just kind of a background on these guys, 37 years old. He was the bullpen coach last season. His first on the staff, and that's under third-year manager Chris Woodward. Segura, 47 years old, was set to be the pitching coach with Texas in AAA, their team in Nashville, but instead coached at the alternate site, training site, after the minor league season was canceled. So this will be Segura's first major league really coaching experience. He worked in player development for the Cubs and Marlins. So at the alternate site, they must have seen something that they liked to give him this opportunity. Texas also announced that Bobby Wilson is going to be their new catching coordinators. They have other moves that they made. But I see this move to bring in 2 guys, 2 pitching coaches. And I don't know if I necessarily think it's the right move, a wrong move, something that will be problematic, something that will work wonders. I don't know. It could go a lot of different ways. The one thing that I want to bring up, though, is that if this works and Texas sees their young pitchers thrive, whether it be starters, bullpen relievers, mid-relievers, close, whatever, what comes next? And I'm not going to get crazy with this and think that there's going to be a lot that happens, but if we see some success with having 2 guys in a singular position that for a long time has been a singular position, if there's one thing we've learned about professional sports, they are copycat leagues. One team sees something works, another team tries it. They try to take what you did and replicate it over here in hopes that you have the same success. So if this works for bullpens, pitching coaches, I will not be surprised to see a lot more teams go, all right, good idea. We're going to have one guy work from the dugout, one guy work from the bullpen. Maybe this guy's specialty is going to be working with the starters. This guy's specialty is going to be with the bullpen guys. There's going to be a lot of different moves. If you want to make it in professional sports, you need to be a team that adapts, learns from each other. And this pitching move could be something to monitor going forward. And if it does not work, no harm, no foul. Maybe they think one guy does a better job than the other and they promote them to being the solo pitching coach instead of co-pitching coaches. But it's definitely something to be watching. I don't think it's a bad idea to bring in multiple, voices to a spot. Two guys watching and trying to help pitchers is not a bad thing. This could be harder to do for hitting coaches maybe, but I still sit there and go, okay, if you have multiple guys trying to help with the hitting, and even if they're on the same page a little bit, this could be very helpful for teams moving forward. So I would watch this because this could carry on. We have a lot of people that do scouting. We have a lot of people that work in a lot of different forms of a baseball organization, whether it be minors, front office, whatever. I think the move to have two co-coaches in a spot is a big move going forward. Now, could this be something that stretches all the way to being co-managers at some time? I don't know. That could be stretching it. That really could be stretching it. But I'm going to keep my eye on this moving forward. Because this is the type of decision that could be, groundbreaking in the MLB. And it's hard to throw groundbreaking out there, but we don't see this. We don't see these guys being announced like this, even if the staff has people helping underneath the pitching coach. Like we don't see it get announced like this. So it's going to be something to watch moving forward. And like we said, this Rangers team, when it comes to pitching help, they need it. They absolutely need it. Because after Lance Lynn, there's not even guys that qualified for many great stats. I mean, and Lance Lynn ended a little south with a 3.32 ERA, but that's not awful. I mean, there are other starters. Kyle Gibson at a 5.32, Jordan Lyles 7.02. Mike Minor was traded, and after not a bad season last year, and Colby Allard 7.7. There's pitching issues there, so we'll see what ends up happening. They've deployed a great deal of pitchers, and the Rangers have more work to do outside of just pitching anyway. So it's just something to keep an eye on. I love interesting decisions that franchises can make. Take a chance, take a try. I don't think the Rangers have much high expectations for their team anyways next year because offense at this point is a question. So we'll see if they even want to make some moves when it comes to the offensive side of things. And like we said, there were other moves that they ultimately ended up making. They had some work with who's going to be their catching specialist, their catching coach as well. They decided to announce Bobby Wilson was going to be their catching coordinator and work with the catchers at the major and minor league levels. He was a 37-year-old who played for 17 years, played at the Rangers, and he was planning to manage at the Double-A affiliate for the Rangers. Worked at the alternate site as well. So we're going to see a lot of guys coming out of these alternate sites potentially getting some new jobs. Now, going to be interesting to see. So, love to hear that. One last thing that I want to talk about before we go for this podcast episode. Just want to take the time to talk about how we should reflect upon this World Series, reflect upon this 2020 season, and just enjoy what we got to see. Now, I sit here at the end of a 2020 season. This might be my last podcast recorded before I get an opportunity to talk about, who wins, and that's most likely going to be the case because my next one coming out on Sunday. I want to take the opportunity to talk about how we should really be grateful and enjoy the end of this World Series, whether it's in Game 6 or in Game 7, and just be happy for what we got in this 2020 season. It was weird. It was crazy. We had rule changes. We had roster shakeups. We had one of our craziest trade deadlines I think that we weren't expecting. We had teams battling COVID outbreaks. Some teams didn't finish playing every game their season. We got an expanded postseason. We got wild card rounds, upsets, teams that wouldn't normally make the postseason, a late run by what was always one of our contenders who disappointed in the regular season. And ultimately, we fell at the end to having the two best teams from each side battling it off in a World Series that at a minimum is going to go 6 games. If we were to sit down after 162 games and say we got all the things that we did from this 60-game season, we would say, wow, that was a heck of a year. We got spoiled with all the ups and downs, all of the drama, all of the fun, and a title chase that was everything we could probably ask for. I hope we all get to look at this season and remember the 2020 season, not for all of the weird things that have happened in the year 2020, but for all the good that we got from this baseball season. It's been fun. This is the first baseball season that I have fully gotten to cover start to finish. And it's the most fun that I have had with the MLB in probably a long time. So I'm hoping that a lot of other people also get that opportunity to share in the enjoyment of everything that's happened. Because next is the off season, the door, the cycle, it keeps turning. We keep going, and it's on to the next year. We truly don't get a lot of time to sit and reflect and go, hey, that was a great season, had a lot of fun, before we start focusing on the next year. Start talking about any off-season moves, free agency, trades, contract extensions, rule change, all of that. I'm taking my second now. I'm taking my opportunity to sit, reflect, and just smile and enjoy what we had. And I hope you get the opportunity to do that as well. And, just enjoy Game 6 and potentially Game 7 of this World Series. So that's going to be it for me here on this episode of the GSMC Baseball Podcast. I want to thank you once again for downloading, listening. It means a great deal. Your support is outstanding. It wouldn't be too much. I would love to ask if you could leave a positive review, comment, question, idea that you'd love for us to discuss later on. Any of that stuff would be great. It means a lot. Maybe you want to talk about some things in the postseason. Maybe you got someone who had a great October that I didn't mention. Maybe you have some thoughts on the 2 pitching coaches. Would love to hear any of it. But that's going to be it for me now. Going to sign you off. Enjoy that World Series tonight. We'll see you again on Sunday. That's it for me, Collin Manley, here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.